Hello everybody and welcome to Tiger Tales, the place you'll find stories and fanfictions written and read to you by your host, me, Tai Tiger. Today we're diving in to a new mini-series of mine in our Tiger Tales Marvel and DC fanfiction universe. A universe where I've merged Marvel and DC into one massive ongoing universe. And you have several storylines that you can listen to, both on Tiger Tales and Tiger Tales The Lost Stories, where you'll find multiple new original characters in the Marvel DC universe, and of course I've brought back some of our old friends as well. And the stories collide and they're merged together, and they deal with new threats, old threats, and the loss of some of their teammates. So, let's start our new mini-series, which actually depicts some of our favourite Marvel and DC superheroes and supervillains 2 days before the event collided. The event is called Union Day, and this takes place 2 days beforehand.
Union Day, a devastating event that collided two universes. We know them as the Marvel Universe and the DC Universe. Now they are merged together, existing as one, with many tales to tell. And as those incredible stories unfold, we must honor the fact that every story has a beginning. So now, it is time to explore the stories of the individuals we all know so well before the biggest event took place and changed their lives forever. So let us explore the 48 hours before Union Day.
48 hours before Union Day. Loki. Loki sat there in his cell, in the prison on Asgard. He took a long deep sigh, as he was very bored. The god of mischief reduced down to absolute nothing, but a monkey behind a glass wall. He picked up his book and read it for the 56th time. It was a tall tale of a man who was sent off after being banished from his world and made a new home. It caused him to learn several things as he reflected on his own hatred as he explored the new worlds. And eventually, he headed back home to see if he could redeem himself. But the book never stated what happened after that. He read the first page, and then the second. He took a long deep breath and placed down the book. He looked at his reflection in the glass, and then he made himself look like his own brother, Thor. "Loki, you are such a disappointment," Loki said, imitating his own brother. Then he shimmered back to his normal look. "You're not jealous, are you?" "Of course you are. I'm bigger than you," Loki called out. Then he shimmered his look back to Thor. "Bigger? Please! My biceps could crush your skull!" Loki mocked once again. Then he shifted back to himself for one last time. "Wrong muscle there, brother," Loki said. He raised one eyebrow and smiled at himself. "God, I am bored," he called out. "Yes, I guess it can be rather boring here," a man replied. Loki stood up and looked through the glass to see a finely dressed fellow in a white suit. "And who are you?" Loki asked. "You may call me Mr. Pocket," the man said with a head tilt. Loki stood there facing the unknown man, claiming to be a Mr. Pocket. Loki then realized that he was human. "You're not Asgardian," Loki stated. "No, I am much, much more." Mr. Pocket grinned. "And why are you talking to me?" Loki asked, intrigued. "To give you an out. Essentially, I want you to do what you do, in exchange for breaking you out of this place," Mr. Pocket explained. "Ooh, calling me interested. Please continue," Loki smiled. "I need you to cause a little mayhem, a little mischief. Tell different stories. From somewhere very remote and specific," Mr. Pocket told him. "So you want me to do what now?" Loki grinned. "Yes, I knew you'd do this. Okay, I'll warn you first. You try anything and I'll erase you from every single universe. And trust me, I won't even break a sweat," Mr. Pocket said sternly. "Oh, I like you," Loki chuckled. Then Mr. Pocket waved his hands and his eyes flashed bright white. Then everything phased out of reality. Loki looked at where the glass wall should have been and he stepped out. Then everything else disappeared. As Mr. Pocket waved his hand and placed his other hand on Loki's arm, everything shifted around him, warped, melted, merged, and then eventually Loki found himself stood on a universe. Okay, so where am I? Loki asked. Somewhere you'd know. This is your universe, Mr. Pocket explained. That is my universe? Wow. You are powerful. And I've met beings like Kang and Thanos and the Eternity thing. Oh, if they only saw me now, Loki chuckled. Oh, please. Knock it off. You're the god of stories, after all, Mr. Pocket told him. I am. Yes. Oh, wow, you are smart. Who are you? I could sense your strength, Loki asked. Well, I'm in need of some changes. Something's about to happen, and I need you out of here, Mr. Pocket said slyly. I beg your pardon, you want me to leave? Loki grunted. I told you I wanted you somewhere specific. It's more like I don't want you somewhere specific, Mr. Pocket said. And where do you not want me? Loki asked, confused. Mr. Pocket held his hands down, pointing to the universe below them. You want me out of my own universe? Loki gasped. Truth is, I don't trust you, Loki. The more you know, the deadlier you become. This universe is about to go under some traumatic event. Dramatic, even. In 2 days, everything will be different, and I need you gone. You are dangerous, and I need you out of here. But I'm also very generous, so I'm giving you an out, Mr. Pocket explained. So you're booting me from my own universe for your own selfish gain? And what? You'll allow me to explore the universe? Which, by the way, I've seen all of it. It is extremely boring. Loki barked. Let me present you with something else, Mr. Pocket told him. Then he held out his hand and an image appeared in his palm. It looked like a small universe. That's a universe? Loki stated. No, it's a multiverse. This one in particular is your multiverse. There is a central point. Us. I need you to look past that, Mr. Pocket said. Then he shrunk down the small multiverse in his hand and more multiverses appeared. Loki's eyes widened in shock. All these multiverses dripping in potential, dripping with different ways of life, different types of power, different energy makeup. You name it, it's there, Mr. Pocket explained to him. Loki took a deep breath. Then he thought about all the storytelling fun he could have, all the exploring he could do. So one more time, I can explore all these vast multiverses, just as long as I leave my own multiverse alone, Loki asked. Of course, Mr. Pocket grinned. Loki held out his hand and Mr. Pocket shook it. Then Mr. Pocket's eyes glowed white and Loki was suddenly wrapped in a blinding light. Loki opened his eyes and looked around, and he was suddenly surrounded by multiverses beyond multiverses. Loki floated there, smiling. Oh wow, he wasn't lying, Loki gasped. The god of stories began laughing manically as he floated through the multiverse size bucket of endless possibilities. He soared through them. He saw heroes and villains, but ones unlike the ones he knew. These heroes wore capes and symbols of bats, lightning bolts, and some form of S-shaped logos. Some wore capes but killed people with laser visions. There were ninjas with great power. Some had creatures that came from balls or cards or some form of necklaces. Others wore brightly coloured spandex. There were quite a few variations of them, different colours, themes and weapons. Others lived in worlds riddled with the undead. Some slayed vampires. There was even a man who was half vampire and half angel. And he had wings. Loki soared through the limitless possibilities, like he was swimming. Then he stumbled across the central multiverse with a very interesting planet. He entered said universe and landed on the planet, and it felt like home. The planet was very grey and very dull. All the buildings and structures were destroyed. He even found a statue. He walked up to it and read the name engraved on it, but it was in a different language. But somehow Loki could read it, and it read, Odin. Father, Loki said. Then he walked over to the head of the statue and stamped on it. Breaking it into pieces, he found more statues, all destroyed. Some of them he recognized the names of: Heimdall, Tyr, Sith, and Thor. He also found his mother, but none of the statues looked like the people he knew. Then he walked around the place, and then he found another statue, and he recognized the name immediately. Not the face, just the name. The name read Loki. "And who's this handsome devil?" Loki asked as he picked up the head of the statue. Then he placed the statue head down and he carried on strolling around, when he realized a small buzzing sound, and it was rather irritating. He closed his eyes and focused on it. He found something hidden in the mountain. Loki teleported to the source of the noise and found a cave buried deep inside the mountain. He walked in and found a table, a fire pit, and a bed, with certain things scattered across the place. Sat on the floor, leant against the cave wall, was a skeleton. "And who do we have here?" Loki asked. He searched the skeleton and found a rolled up piece of parchment. He unrolled it and read it out loud. "By the name of Loki, please do not touch my stuff." "Oh, well. Hello, old me," Loki chuckled as he stared down at the dead bone husk that once was a version of himself. Loki looked around and searched the tables. He found the source of the hissing noise. It was a wooden mask trying to escape, which shimmered green. He placed it on his face and the mask tried to latch onto him, sucking at his skin. Loki pulled away rather quickly. "Okay, well, this has me all over it," Loki sighed. Then he decided that the cave would be the perfect place for his meddling. Like Mr. Pocket said, he could now explore all the multiverses. Loki figured out it was best not to actually roam around the universes, as he did not want to die by some mean that he didn't understand, and he would be nothing then, just a simple peasant that knew nothing about the universes that he said died in. He started a fire in the fire pit, then he sat down and meditated, and the flames turned from orange to green, and Loki set his mind in the multiverse. He found a simple, unique, boring universe. Loki then gripped the mask, and that was still in his hand, and the mask would grant whoever wore its mischievous powers. So Loki threw the mask into the fire and sent it to that Earth. It was a boring, mundane universe, so Loki thought, why not spice it up a bit? Then he started reaching his mind into other multiverses. His subconscious searched, viewing the universes like a TV show. He found something rather interesting. A world where people slept in strange devices over their heads, concealing their eyes. Loki could feel the power from the machines, so he explored them as well. And he entered a new world, where people fought with swords. There was action and power rippling through a virtual reality world. Loki figured out that the people asleep were controlling people in the virtual reality. It was like they had avatars there. Loki thought about causing some hell for their bodies whilst they were asleep. It would tell a very interesting story. So that's exactly what he did. "This'll be my first place," Loki grinned. He then held out his hand and remembered what Mr. Pocket taught him. But he didn't remember what Mr. Pocket taught him. Loki then realized that Mr. Pocket had downloaded information into his mind. He did the spell and summoned a fully realistic version of himself. It was the ultimate clone. It could do anything for itself, think and move. It was real, another living Loki. The only downside is, it wasn't a perfect Loki. Loki grinned. The Loki clones did not know that they were cloned, which every other universe that they were put into, they were also given memories of their so-called life in said universe. And if there was no Loki, that would be even better. Only Loki sat in the cave watching the green fire knew that all the Lokis were a version of himself. He then sent this version of Loki into the universe to soak in all the information about the virtual reality before it could stand out a plan and cause a plan of attack. Then he remembered the funny-looking heroes in spandex. They're all different and very funny-looking. Loki searched for that multiverse and found it rather quickly. It was rather large multiverse, and it was also ever-expanding. He wanted to learn how to work with the power behind the spandex squads, so he found a universe that had not yet habited a spandex group, but he did find someone in there talking to gods like himself. He then made another version of himself and sent it to that universe. Then he found a Spartan warrior in a different universe altogether. He was escaping another god-ridden pantheon after slaughtering them and found a giant to be fell in love with. He also found Thor, Odin, Sith and Heimdall in the universe, but they had left the Spartan to his own devices. Loki wondered what would happen if they had a Loki. And Loki also wondered what would happen if he had a strong, brutal man like the Spartan as his father. The Loki in the universe with the spandex hero walked up to the whole group of gods. Zeus, Odin, Ra, Thor, Shiva, Anubis, Hercules, Indra, Isis, and Neptune were some of the gods that stood around. In the city in the sky, the humans waited down on the ground level for the gods to speak to them, and a blue being, stood there before the gods. "Hello, I am Brohan. I come to teach you the power that can unite all of you," the strange man stated. "We are gods, boy. What makes you think we don't have power?" Zeus barked. "This power will unite you in many ways. It's called the morphing grid," Brohan said. Loki stood there in awe. He had a devilish grin on his face. He liked the sound of that. The original Loki sat there meditating, keeping an eye on the green fire, watching his two clones. He left it as 2 for now, as he didn't want to take it overboard. But it was Loki. God of stories, god of mischief, and he didn't even trust himself. And there you have it, guys. Our first 48 hours before Union Day story. Now don't worry, we'll be diving into both Marvel and DC superheroes and supervillains, groups and singled out stories. There's lots to come. But don't forget to check out the other storylines already planted in the universe. Not only will you find Marvel and DC stories all rolled into one massive universe spread across 2 different channels, Tiger Tales and Tiger Tales Lost Stories, but on both channels you'll find one humongous playlist where you can listen to the stories in chronicle order, so make sure you check that out as well. That being said, thank you very much for subscribing to the channel if you have. If you haven't already, consider subscribing, because you won't be sorry, because you'll be new stories all the time. Also, there's other Tiger Tales channels. There's Tiger Tales The Lost Stories, Tiger Tales Game Over, and Tiger Tales Mysterious Origins, where you'll find fanfictions and original stories spread across the 4 channels in their own little motifs, and there are plenty of voice actors and stories to tell. Also check out Tiger Tales X, where you'll find more stories written by me, but they are complete crossovers from 2 different fandoms that I'm a huge fan of. For example, Ben 10 and Doctor Who is one of the ongoing stories on that channel. Do you want to go check it out? A huge shout out to the Zero to Hero podcast, the If You Give a Dad a podcast, and the Tiger Nexus podcast. A huge shout out to the 3 Ranger Bros, and the Author's Crown YouTube channel. With that being said, thank you guys for subscribing and checking out my stories, and I shall see you guys real soon.
Don't touch my Pringles.